Welcome, everybody. Hi. Thanks for coming out tonight. Good to see you. Good to see you. My name is Star Latronica. I'm the director here, and welcome to the library. I do have this poster that Tara, our programming and outreach person, has given me with a QR code. I'll try and hold it still so you can check all of our programs so you don't ever miss anything that goes on here. And we've got a lot going on. We've got a fabulous program just tomorrow night. Actually, we have one right now upstairs, but you guys don't get to see that. We do also have conveniently located exits. One's over there, and an emergency exit is right over there. There's a restroom down this hall and 2 more upstairs. And so it is my delight now to turn the microphone over to Trish Twain.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear? Right. Hello. There we go. Thank you all for coming out on this cold night and wet night, but at least it's not as cold as it has been. So I think that that's a great way to warm up the time we're going to spend together. I want to thank the library and BCTV for partnering with the Commons and helping us bring this program together. Everybody's pitched in and done so on a fairly short notice. We're really here to discuss the challenges and changes ahead of us with the vote. It comes up on March 3rd, and our hope tonight is to have a little bit different format than you've had through the hearings that have been incredibly informative over the last couple of weeks, but now to have some more input in terms of how people envision what some of these different votes, how the outcome might actually be practically be implemented, and what changes would be ahead of us in terms of the way we govern the town of Brattleboro. So with me tonight, Randy Hallhut, who's the editor for the Commons here in Brattleboro. He's had many years between the Reformer and the Commons, covering this area and the town and community. Kate O'Connor comes with her hat as the chair of the Charter Revision Commission. So she will create some of the construct about how the charter may have to be changed or will suit us to follow the path forward. Andy Davis, who has been an RTM member for quite a while here, right? To speak in his view why it is the form of government that we should try to continue with. Then we have Tom Franks, who has done quite a bit of work on Australian ballot, and he will bring his views and thoughts forward. And David Gartenstein, who refers to himself as an open town meeting guy, but also has a long history as moderator for us in the town and many, many other positions that give him a lot of experience and background in the area. So enjoy yourselves after Randy finishes with the first comment. We'll be welcoming questions from the floor. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So why are we here? For those 3 questions on the ballot on March 3rd. And the first one is the shortest one of all, but might have the most impact. Shall Brattleboro discontinue the representative form of town meeting? That's all it says. But you get into weeds with the next 2 questions. So, Article 3, in the event that Article 2 is affirmative, shall Brattleboro vote by Australian ballot at any annual or special town meeting on the following? 1, the election of town officers. 2, the approval of the annual general fund budget. 3, all authorizations for major bonding and borrowing. 4, all public questions, and 5 charter amendments. And here's where it gets interesting. If the vote on 3 is in the affirmative, Article 2, Section 3F of the charter shall be utilized for the following.
It's very spotty.
Okay, that's better. All right, so here's where the legalese starts, where can get confused. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary in this article and Article 3, the Australian ballot system of voting shall be utilized for the following: the election of town officers, the approval of the annual general fund budget, all authorizations for major bonding and funding, all public questions, and charter amendments. So then you get to Article 4, that in the event that representative town meeting is discontinued in the town of Brattleboro, shall the town vote on all budget articles and public questions by open town meeting. This ballot option includes the rule that the Australian ballot form of voting shall be used to elect town officers, as well as any other articles required by law to be voted on by Australian ballot. Again, the legalese. If the vote on the article is in the affirmative, Article 2, Section 3F of the Charter shall be added to the Brattleboro Charter as follows. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary in this article and Article 3, all budget articles and public questions shall be voted upon at an annual or special town meeting, or voted up or down at one of those. So you take those three questions together, and those articles could transform the system of government in Brattleboro. The system that Brattleboro has used for 65 years, the representative town meeting. And what will these changes accomplish, and why are they needed? So tonight we have this panel. They'll talk about these changes. We'll start with the head of the Charter Commission, Kate O'Connor, who will talk about the charter process, which is at the heart of these changes.
Thanks, Randy, and thanks everybody for coming tonight. And I'm hoping that what I'm going to say will make some sense, because there's a lot that is confusing. So I'm happy to answer any questions after this is all over, but I'm going to do my best effort to make this make sense. As Randy said, I'm the chair of the Charter Revision Commission, and what I want to do is try to put some process around why we're having this vote on March 3rd. As Randy just read, there are 3 questions on the ballot that go to whether or not we're going to change our form of government. 2 of those questions could, if approved, change our charter. So you ask, what is our charter? Our charter outlines how our government in Brattleboro functions. You can read it on our website. There are pretty copies that for some reason have an orange cover. But you can go to brattleboro.gov and you can see the charter. In a very simplistic, basic understanding of the charter, it outlines the role of, it has a lot, but it outlines the role of the select board and the role of the people. And as Randy said, for 60 plus years, our form of government has been representative town meeting. There are a number of ways to change the charter. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. One is the Charter Revision Commission process, and the second is by citizen petition. In the charter, every 15 years, the select board has to appoint a charter revision commission to look at the charter and recommend any changes. I was appointed along with 5 other Brattleboro residents at the end of December of 2022. We started meeting in 2023, and we met, and we still haven't done our work, finished our work. And those are changes that you folks will see a little bit later, not now. We don't want to confuse everybody. But when we were meeting in July of 2025 is when we have been talking about what to do about representative town meeting for literally 2.5 years. It was a topic that had come up at all of our meetings. In July of 2025, there was a citizen petition that started circulating to change representative town meeting form of government to an Australian ballot form of government. Shortly after that, a citizen petition came forward that would change representative town meeting to an open town meeting form of government. And petitions, you need 5%, you need signatures by 5% of registered voters in the town. So each of these petitions garnered over 450 or whatever it was signatures. Once that happened, the select board is required to put them on the ballot for a townwide vote. That's what's happening in March. At that point, the Charter Revision Commission said, well, let's wait, we'll step back, we'll hold off continuing our work until we figure out what's going to happen in March. So the reason that we're having this vote in March is because these two citizen-driven petitions came forward. Regardless of what happens in March, how the vote goes, changing the charter is a significant thing to do. And the process doesn't end on March 3rd with our vote. This is where it gets really fun for all of us. We're a Dillon's rule state, which means municipalities can only exercise, what's the right word? Powers that the state allows. So if the open town meeting petition passes and or the Australian ballot petition passes, it has to go to the legislature for approval. And then it has to go to the governor for signature. So whatever we're doing is bigger than us, in a sense, because other people out there are going to be making the ultimate decision. The legislature doesn't have to approve what we give them. They can say no, they can change it, they can do whatever they want, and when it gets to the governor, he can veto it. It'll be put in the form of a bill. So I just want everybody here to know we're going to do something in March, and if there's an affirmative vote or one or both of those charter amendment votes, the process is just beginning. It's going to go to the legislature, which is going to be its own sort of quagmire of figuring out what happens next. So I just want you to know that a charter change is a significant thing. I want everyone to come away with knowing that. Now, not to super confuse everybody, but as I said and as Randy read, there are 3 questions. The first one is, shall the town of Brattleboro discontinue the representative town meeting form of government? That is not a charter change. So that does not have to go to the legislature. The select board put that on the ballot. And that is per state statute. If we want to stop using a representative form of government, the municipality has to vote on it. So the first question about representative town meeting being discontinued is not a charter change, which means if on March 3rd, we as a community vote to stop using representative town meeting form of government, there will be no representative town meeting in 2026. And per state statute, because people ask, well, what happens if we don't have representative town meeting? Per state statute, we will automatically default to an open town meeting. So town government is already planning for, in the event that representative town meeting is continued, they've got representative town meeting on the schedule just like normal. And then if it's discontinued, right now they are planning for an open town meeting in April.
Sorry, Kate, one very quick question. So you said if the first question passes, there'd be no representative town meeting this year?
Correct. Because there's no charter change required. So that happens right away. The other questions about open town meeting and Australian ballot, those have to go to the legislature. And the way the legislative calendar is, we all know they're up there right now working, and they usually work from like January to May, maybe June. By the time we have our vote and it gets up there, it has to be put in bill form, it has to go through a House committee, has to go through the Vermont House, it has to go to the Senate committee and go through the Senate, and then it has to be signed off by the governor. There's absolutely no way that's going to happen in March of 2026. So we're talking 2027 before an actual resolution maybe will come about. But for the immediate, what we're talking about right now, there are 2 things that are charter change questions, and the first one about representative town meeting is not. So I hope I didn't confuse the whole world by what I just want to say, but I wanted to lay it out on how we got here and why we're here.
And then what we are going to change if we, depending on how we vote. And Andy has been doing the town meetings for many years.
That's accurate.
Or not quite as much time as playing music, but one's more fun than the other. So Andy will speak to the joys of town meeting.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Thank you to the Commons for organizing this. People talk about one form of government over the other, but democracy is like a big quilt. There's many aspects of it, and a free press is part of it. Our freedom of speech, our freedom to assemble here tonight is all part of the big tapestry. There's about 40 people here tonight. So imagine more than 3 times as many people as are here right now, concerned citizens. That's what RTM is like. And when I look out at this crowd, I see people of many different opinions, many different backgrounds, many of whom I've served on RTM with and heard at different venues around town. And that's what makes RTM representative of the community. It's not because one representative goes out and finds out how everybody feels in their district and then puts it into an algorithm and goes and votes accordingly. It's that the total body of about 140 voted reps who were elected by Australian ballot, and the ex officio members, which are people like the moderator and the town treasurer and the select board, are also part of RTM, also mostly there because of election in an Australian ballot. They add up to 150 people who are representative of our community, and that's why I believe it's called the representative town meeting. I'm here to speak for this institution, so I'm not going to spend time on the other options. But there is some overlap between RTM and Open Town Meeting. Many of the advantages of Open Town Meeting and RTM are shared on those. Australian ballot is a very different direction to go in. And all three are Open Town Meeting, representative, and Australian ballot are all elements of democratic process. We already have Australian secret ballot in Brattleboro. We use it to elect our select board, other town officers, and to elect our representatives to town meeting. RTM does not stand alone. Representative town meeting does not stand alone. It's part of a system of checks and balances. RTM serves as a check with the select board. The people, through the various referendums that are allowed. We have a very liberal referendum right here according to our town charter, and the people can check RTM and the select board through referendums. RTM's pretty good sized. It's actually larger than the United States Senate and the Vermont Senate combined. I did the research on that. RTM is larger than those two bodies combined. Somebody online said that in all the years they've lived in Brattleboro, no RTM rep has called them up to get their opinion before voting. And I said to them, well, it's been years since Bernie called me or Becca or anybody, but our numbers as representatives are published. Our contact information can be accessed in less than 3 minutes by anybody in town. And when people call, I consider that a powerful moment in my life, and I sit down and talk to them. Let me move on here. RTM members are committed to serving the town over a 3-year term. Our representative town meeting has the power to approve, reject, or amend articles that are put before it at the town meeting within the bounds of Brattleboro's charter and Vermont state law. RTM interrogates the town administration, goes through the budget, and asks for particular information about things that are on the warning. As I mentioned, it's a check on other parts of town government. And RTM is also subject to checks and balances. RTM serves consistently, and this goes back to the origins. The same size group of people meet whether there is acute controversy in town or the appearance of no controversy in town. It's a steady, committed group of people. It revolves over the years as people come in and out, but it's a consistent, fair, and face-to-face deliberative process. RTM draws upon accumulated knowledge and memory. Some of the issues we've tackled have gone on for several years. Solid waste took a lot of our time. I could mention other things we've tackled, police facilities. 1% added sales tax was a multi-year conversation. Obviously, public safety and the nature of policing in Brattleboro, fire department facilities, these things sometimes take more than 1 year of discussing and compromising and learning. Somebody once said a couple times in the hearings that, at RTM, the loudest voices rule the day, or something like that. I may not be completely word for word correct. But that's not really true, because RTM uses the same legislative rules as other parliamentary bodies in our country, Robert's Rules of Order. And I think anyone on RTM has seen somebody who talks on every issue, suddenly their power evaporates. The people that speak concisely, with good questions, some research behind them, an openness to listen to other people, usually those are the people that are listened to and lead the way toward compromise. RTM members, to sum up, are willing to serve, to prepare, to listen, to learn, and compromise. They're also human beings. People miss meetings for family crises, for illness, for weather. There are things, family things, so people are sometimes not there. RTM does represent the people of Brattleboro, our shared interests and our varied viewpoints. The membership is equally distributed across our 3 legislative districts, and that helps ensure that there are varied points of view. We are the only town in the state of Vermont with the representative, and that kind of goes along with our motto, the one and only Brattleboro. Let's see, I'm going to run ahead here. Wrap up? I'll wrap up. I'll just say, to close, I had something here to just say, right here it is. I wanted to mention that I think one of the things that's not brought up a lot at these hearings is some people express that RTM is somehow an engine for the rise of taxes in this town. RTM did not create the forces that are driving our tax increases, but I will say that RTM is a forum for responding to these pressures, and I think the pressures over the next few years are going to increase, not decrease. And simply voting a number up or down is going to be a less valuable process than 150 people talking about the challenges we face, listening, compromising, and proposing the way forward. Thank you.
And that's a very good segue to Tom's time at the mic, since he's one of the people who helped get these questions onto the ballot.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you to the Commons, the library. Thank you, Kate, for that great explanation. It was really necessary. It's always good to hear what's really going on, and that has not been brought out a lot. One person, one vote says it all. I believe that every voter in town should have the opportunity to vote on the town budget and other important issues. I have 3 points I'm going to start with. First, the town meeting format, whether representative or open, takes the vote away from a portion of the town's registered voters. Second, across the state, participation in town with Australian ballots on average is over twice as high as that is for towns using town meeting. Third, Brattleboro is much worse off by economic measures than comparable towns. Here's some detail on each of these. Town meeting formats exclude voters. In the case of RTM, it's over 98% of the voters on the checklist. Both town meetings exclude those voters who cannot, for a host of possible reasons, commit to attending a meeting at a certain place and time for an unspecified duration. Some of the voters who might be unable to participate in an open town meeting are people with disabilities, people in hospitals and residential facilities, people for whom English is not their primary language, people who spend April and March in other places but primarily live here, people who work multiple jobs, people who work at night and would be too exhausted to focus during a long daytime meeting, People who have young children and cannot arrange childcare, people who care for other household members and cannot arrange for their care, business owners and professionals who work with many different people in town and are concerned about the loss of business if they take a public position on local matters, and people who work for federal, state, or local governments may feel they are excluded due to the Hatch Act. Point number 2, some more information. Across Vermont, the use of Australian ballot increases as town size increases. For towns comparable to Brattleboro, both in terms of level of service and size, only Burlington does not use Australian ballot for its budget. Their city council approves the budget. For towns of comparable size, only Brattleboro and Middlebury use a town meeting type. Brattleboro and Middlebury are very different towns on a host of economic issues. Just to give you a sense of the turnout, Australian ballot average turnout, regardless of town size, break it into 5 segments, exceeds 20%. That's the Australian. The average turnout for floor votes or town meeting participation, it's pretty good below 750 voters, 19%. As you go up in town size, it drops 8%, 6%, 4%. When you get to towns over 5,000, floor vote turnout, and there's only one of them actually, and that's Middlebury, that is over, they have a turnout of 1%. Once again, they're very special too, but they're very different from us. And in the last 3 years, 31 towns have adopted Australian ballot. 3, talking about comparable towns and why we're worse off. Brattleboro has a paid fire and police departments. I chose towns that are roughly our in the same size category and have those features because they are pretty significant cost drivers. Based on the data available when I started the research into this, I found that Brattleboro had the lowest median income, the highest poverty rate, the second highest portion of household spending over 30% and household spending over 50% of their income on housing, the 4th highest town tax rate and average municipal tax rate per homestead, despite a house value 20% lower than average in our comparables. What we are doing is not working for us in economic terms. If all of the other comparable towns, with the exception of Burlington, and we don't necessarily want to follow their example, are using Australian ballots for their budget, maybe that's something we should seriously consider. One of the points that's been made repeatedly is, representative town meeting will provide more information to the select board if a budget is rejected. Last year, we had multiple votes on what the budget should be, just a number, not what to cut, not what we wanted, not what we didn't want, just a number. In the end, after many hours of discussion, all we, and I'm a member of representative town meeting, and I don't know how long it has been, and I don't know if Andy was there when I started, but all we sent back to the select board was no. We didn't give them any information at all. And finally, in terms of everything I've told you tonight, you can look it up. You can find it. There's data, or it's incontrovertible. I tell you can't. If I were coming to representative town meeting and slipped in the ice and fell, I wouldn't be there to vote. My vote. There are lots of reasons you can get deprived your vote with Australian ballot and absentee ballot and mail-in ballot. It's almost impossible. You have to choose not to vote. Nothing can stop you. And that's really important to me. A review, finally, on the topic of the value of deliberation, a review of multiple academic and scholarly studies of New England town meetings shows that the authorities are unanimous in agreeing that the rosy view of town meeting as the perfect democracy is a romantic myth. Town meetings and RTM are too large for effective deliberation. There's a whole bunch of peer-reviewed articles about deliberative body size. 5 to 9, you can do it alone. Up to 25, you need a little facilitation. You get any bigger and you need to have breakouts, multi-day or multi-session work to really get to a good decision where everybody gets to be heard. Everybody has a chance to contribute their intelligence, their perspective, their insight. And finally, they did find that town meetings and RTM, representative town meeting, are dominated by the culture of the attendees with loudest voices. They found it. It's in the research. Town meeting and representative town meetings have always been dominated by privileged, powerful, and entitled citizens. If you can run for that office, if you know you can make it, if you know you have the ability to speak in public at length and be argumentative, if you can take that on, if you're comfortable with it, hey, you can run and you can vote. If you're not willing to do all that or able to do all that, you're deprived of a vote, even with an open town meeting format. I think we deserve better. We deserve one person, one vote. All votes and all voices are equal with Australian secret ballot. Thank you for listening.
And then there's the person who will have to deal with whatever you, the voters, decide.
Hi, I'm David Gardenstein. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's a really important topic for us to be discussing how our government's going to function. And I want to encourage everybody who's got a view about this, not just to attend and not just to think about it, but also to consider sharing your views with others, to think about writing letters to the paper in the hopes that everybody's views will be articulated and as widely available as possible. So I'm town meeting moderator. I was on select board for 6 years, from 2011 to 2017. I've served in a series of other positions. I consider them all to be volunteer positions here in the town. I was on Charter Revision Commission for the first couple of years. And I was there at the ground floor when we started talking about potential changes to how the town government would function. I've always been in favor of open town meeting. I first ran for town meeting representative spot in like 1985 or 1986. And I wasn't elected that first time. And I have never, ever understood in the 40 years since why it is that people who live in Brattleboro should not all be allowed to attend town meeting if they're interested in being involved. And that right there is the core of the reason why I'm in favor of open town meeting. So let's be clear. What does it mean, open town meeting? Just like all the other towns in Vermont where there's town meeting, people who reside in town come to town meeting. They're qualified because the town clerk makes sure that they live there, and then they get to participate in town meeting. And that's what we mean by open town meeting. You live here, you can go to town meeting on town meeting Tuesday. And that's been my position for 40 years. I raised it when I was on Charter Revision Commission. I left Charter Revision Commission. Ultimately, that is something that a number of people have embraced, and it's now on the ballot as an alternative to Australian ballot. After the forum, after the public hearing last Thursday, I had a conversation with somebody about public engagement in town government. And I was asked whether the involvement that people are having now in this discussion might lead to an increase in citizen engagement in town government. And it made me think about this question that we're going to be voting on March 3rd differently than I had thought about it before. Probably at any given time, there's 50 or 100 people who participate in Brattleboro town government, right? Select board, although they get paid more than when I was on select board, it's really a volunteer board, right? And so you've got 5 select board members who are involved pretty much every day, certainly a couple, 3-4 days a week in dealing with the business of the town. You've got then a whole series of other people who volunteer to engage in various endeavors that are town business, planning commission, charter revision commission, zoning board, development review board, parks and recs board, a range of different boards that people participate in. I would guess it's between 50 and 100 people who participate and help to run the government, besides all the paid employees. There's like 150 people, right? 150 people who are employed by the town. So I was looking over at Kate because she was on select board with me. It's about 150 people employed by the town. The difference for me between Australian ballot and town meeting really goes to the question of engagement and level of engagement in town government. Now, throughout this campaign about Australian ballot and open or representative town meeting, I've heard a lot of criticisms about representative town meeting. I hope I'll get a chance over the course of the evening to respond to each and every one of them, because I don't really think that those criticisms of representative town meeting or open town meeting are particularly valid criticisms. I could go through each one, but that's not really what I want to talk about right now. The difference for me between town meeting form of government, be it open or representative, and Australian ballot has to do with the breadth and the depth of citizen engagement in our government. All right? Through town meeting form of government, representative now at 150 people, you probably have about the same number of people, 150, 200 people going to town meeting. You get a group of people who spend significant amount of time to prepare, to review, to really understand the business of town government. The level of discussion at town meeting is very detailed. It requires people to take the time to study and understand at a fine, detailed level how the government is functioning. And I've heard concerns raised about input not being provided during debate and the deliberative process not working. I've moderated this meeting now for, I think, 5 years. Maybe I'm coming on my 5th or my 6th. Everybody who wants to speak gets a chance. People change their minds. People engage with one another respectfully. People deliberate as a group. In fact, the deliberative process is what we commit some of the most important decisions in our community. I was a prosecutor for 21 years, all right? And guilt or innocence is decided through a deliberative process with a jury of 12. Now, 150 people is more, but that's how those really important decisions are made, with people starting with views on what they heard and saw, thinking about what their neighbors have to say, and then together deliberating and making a decision. And that's a depth of involvement and a depth of engagement and deliberation. It is a smaller group of people than would be voting at Australian ballot. You're going to have 150 or 200 people who are deeply involved. Some of them will overlap with the people who are already involved in town government, but you've got people deeply involved and working on these issues. I'm not going to say that there's no issue to be discussed, right? Because there's a debate to be had about Australian ballot versus town meeting, particularly in a town this size. But what you get with Australian ballot is the opportunity to vote up or down on the budget number by paper ballot. And you're not going to have the same level of depth, the same level of commitment and involvement and discussion about those core issues that are deciding how the town functions. So you've got much more surface level engagement by many more people. And that's a fundamental question that has to be decided here. Do you want a narrower group of people who are way more involved and spending way more time to understand? Or are we going to have 20% of the population? Let's not forget, usually you get, at March elections, 1,800, 2,000 people voting, that means that 80% of the people in town are not voting at March elections. So 80% of the people are excluded from the process, self-excluded. They don't participate. So you're going to have about 20% of the population with a much more surface level engagement, but a way broader swath of people than who would attend town meeting. That is the fundamental, for me, question that has to be decided here. And I set to the side all those questions about criticisms of representative town meeting because I don't agree with almost any of them. But you do have a fundamental government and ideological question to decide. Do you want more people with less engagement, or do you want a smaller group of people who are way, way involved? That's what I came to think about after that discussion about citizen engagement. And I hope everybody will think about those questions and vote what you think is best. Thank you.
Okay, you heard them. Our panel speak their piece. Now it's your turn. We got about 50 people online also watching this, and thank you for taking the time to do so. And you can ask questions online by on the BCTV's YouTube channel. Just text them, and we'll find a way to get it up here. So stand up if you can, and identify yourselves for the BCTV audience, and ask a question. Let's start with you.
I just want to make sure, Mike, everybody who's speaking.
Thank you very much. Craig Miskovich. I'm a RTM member from District 7, and I rise to argue against Andy Davis and David Gartenstein at my significant peril, but I will do my best. And thank you both for the incredible work that you do.
And
Yes.
by the way, you get 2 minutes.
Okay, I will go even faster now. So I think that people who can barely get themselves to the Legion to vote should be allowed to participate in our democracy too. I don't think we should have an elite group that gets to make those decisions, even though they are better read and more informed. My concern about representative town meeting, and Andy, I'll have kind-hearted people can debate this question. I don't think it is representative. 85% of the elections in representative town meeting are uncontested. Representative town meeting are volunteers, and that's fine, but we don't leave our democracy to volunteers. And we're the only town in the state of Vermont that doesn't have a direct participation in town meeting, either through Australian ballot or through a open town meeting. And if representative town meeting was the town meeting that David Gartenstein entered into 40 years ago when David Gartenstein didn't get elected, I would be more supportive of representative town meeting. But the fact that we're not elected, we are just volunteers, I think disqualifies that as a legitimate form of town meeting. I have less quibble with the open town meeting. What I would recommend is to maximize the number of people who vote, have an Australian ballot, and to give everybody the opportunity for that civic discussion, like many communities have a public forum the night before the Australian ballot. Thank you.
Millicent Cooley. Also, I'm a rep at RTM, District 9, and I'm on the Finance Committee, and this is a question about the Finance Committee. If RTM is discontinued, how will the RTM Finance Committee operate going forward? So for those of you who don't know, currently the committee members, Finance Committee members are appointed every year at RTM, and our role is to analyze, provide an independent point of view, and help voters and the public to understand what's going on with the budget. The budget's now up to $27 million. The budget documents are really complex. We spend many hours and weeks preparing. And so what would happen if RTM is rescinded? How's this going to function?
Yeah, I can give you a sort of hypothetical because obviously there's decisions to be made by other people. But the Charter Revision Commission actually looked at this question. The Finance Committee is in the town charter as a representative town meeting committee. It's in the charter. And again, I'm speaking right now as the Charter Revision Commission chair. The Charter Revision Commission's recommendation in our draft charter that you folks will see someday, hopefully later this year, is that the Finance Committee actually be elected by the people of the town, just as the Select Board is. The Finance Committee names would be on the ballot under the charter that we have drafted, because its whole beginnings was a representative town meeting committee to advise the people of this community. Obviously, there are town committees that are appointed by the Select Board. So there is that option for the Select Board to say, hey, no, we want to appoint the Finance Committee. But I can say right now, the charter that the Charter Revision Commission is planning to put forward has the Finance Committee being elected by the people of this community, which is the spirit in which it was formed decades ago in the first place. But again, that's a hypothetical because that has to be worked out.
Here's a question from the online audience. If open town meeting passes, would the meeting always be scheduled on town meeting day, or will there be some flexibility in the schedule and making it on a day where more people might make it available?
I can answer this. I can answer this as the Charter Revision. The Charter Revision Commission's been meeting for 3 years, so we know all these little things, that random little facts. We can schedule whether it's an open town meeting or a representative town meeting, it can be scheduled when we want to. So it would not have to be on that Tuesday. So no one has to worry about that. And we've actually, for full transparency, the Charter Revision Commission is at the current time, our version of the charter has open town meeting in it, and that's a conversation we had with the town attorney, that we don't have to have it on the Tuesday that is the annual town meeting. So it can be scheduled on a Saturday.
There are so many questions. We need about 12 forums like this. I have studied democracy all my life.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, Spoonagave, yes. To say that one person, one vote is democracy is like saying that a motor is a car. One person, one vote is one of a list of necessary elements for a democracy. An informed voter is another requirement. Controlling the agenda is another requirement. If the people cannot talk about what they want to talk about, they have no control, they have no power. And there are other aspects of a democracy that I'm not going to enumerate now. They involve more time. But they do include inclusiveness, that as many people as possible in a society should vote. We do exclude some people, even now. We used to exclude a lot more. One question, however. Mr. Franks spends some time talking about the poor economy of this town and says that for that reason, we need to change the form of our government, implying that if we change the form of our government, our economy will improve. Mr. Franks, would you explain why?
I believe I said other towns are doing it. They look better. Shouldn't we try it? There's no guarantee our economy will improve. But I was interviewed today by somebody who was trying to get me to say, so if we have Australian ballot, and the budget keeps going up. Will you be okay with that? My answer was, of course. Because if all the people of the town vote for it, that's what we've decided to do. That's how we've decided to invest our resources. So I did not imply or state even that the economy will get better. I listed facts and I asked a question.
Just a quick response to Spoon Agave. I just wanted to highlight one thing that you said is that democracy is a multifaceted machinery. I think the other night I said all democracies should have a sign on them that says under construction. It's a complicated, interactive way of self-government. The interaction between town meeting and the select board is something I highlighted before, and by state law, the select board is our primary legislative body by state law. When the select board presents a budget, they work with the town management and they put that forward, and all of those hearings are broadcast, they're all open meetings, all of the votes are recorded, there is complete transparency in that process. And at the same time, all of our members of the select board, and it's a good number for group decision making because it's 5, voted by Australian ballot. So to say that having town meeting denies the role of Australian ballot in our town is not true. We have Australian ballot, and they work together. And the way that the town meeting, and this is related to the question about the Finance Committee, that the Finance Committee is another view of the financial situation in town, and to take it that would definitely need to be rethought to have that same dynamic relationship with the select board. Thank you.
He's a roving moderator looking for, I guess, a diversity of sources of comment. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, my name's Chris Chapman. I'm a native of Brattleboro, but I've only lived here consistently since 1991 when I moved back here with my family. I have been a town meeting rep for like Tom and like Andy, years I can't count, many years. And I want to provide some wider context to the issues in front of us. And that is the issue of low voter turnout. I think there's an assumption being made that if we change, there will be more people turning out to engage in the debates and the votes. I am not confident that that argument or that assertion is valid. Of the elections that we go through in this town as voters, comparing to all the elections we go through, state and federal, that the town vote that we have in March is really poor. It's something that makes the system that we have a target for criticism, when in fact, a large part of the issues is the fact that we have a voter engine like a gasoline engine that is fueled inadequately with the octane that it needs to move forward. Will there be the voter participation in improved here at town meeting, at representative town meeting, or in Australian ballot, or in open meeting? Won't there be, if I'm correct in my suspicion that we won't have good turnout, that we will basically have a similar outcome created by the better informed people who actually turn out to vote? Or will we have good votes being taken that take the entire community's best interests at heart in every vote? Or are we going to be smothered, as we have been in at least the last special town meeting, by people who came in with one objective on one matter, if you'll recall, about security downtown. And so what I want to do further is say that this is not a great time, I don't think, in our country, where we are a divided society, in a society that was that elected a president in a manner with really an inadequate turnout of voters. And if you think about it, you think, well, there's just not enough people participating. And what has happened is that a better organized portion of society has caused to be the election of someone who many of us think is a madman. And so I want to just point out to these people whom I respect, one and all, and to you who've turned out tonight, a very small minority of our town, that I think our energy really needs to be spent on getting the voters out, making more room in the newspapers for the commentary that's needed, because newspapers are an extremely important source of democratic activity. And so with that said, I want to thank you for listening as courteously as you have, and worry with me about this particular issue, because it can drastically affect how we live.
I prefer to sit. Thank you.
Randy,
Yes.
thank you. Good to see you here. Good to see you out on a night like this. I have very much tried to tell you things that are either data-based or very hard to refute. I mean, if you got a broken leg and you're in the hospital, you're not going to get to a meeting. I am going to take Chris's comments as an opportunity to speculate, which I try not to do in public, but for this case I shall. I would speculate that part of in response to your question, part of the issue with our low turnout is for most voters, there's no reason to. RTM and the select board make the decisions. The only decisions voters get to make right now in Brattleboro is to vote for those folks. So maybe if we have Australian ballot and people think their vote matters as opposed to they are excluded from voting, our turnout will go up. Purely speculative. Thank you.
Timothy Belknap, RTM 9. I'm going to just sit here because I'm more comfortable. Tonight, this vote comes down to a single, unavoidable question. Do we believe in broad participation, or do we believe in gatekeeping? Open town meeting and representative town meeting were designed for a different time. Today, they exclude more residents than they empower. Long meetings, public pressure, and limited access don't strengthen democracy. They restrict it. We're told that some people are more informed and therefore better suited to decide for everyone else. And I'm thinking about my neighbor at home who actually watches all of these select board meetings and reads these, and she does not have a vote. Okay, so we hear warnings about social media misinformation paired with the clear implication that RTM members are thoughtful and rational while the broader public is not. That's elitism, plain and simple. Brattleboro's residents are capable, informed, and fully able to decide what is best for their own lives and their own community. Democracy does not improve by shrinking who gets to vote. We're also told that RTM or OTM produce better deliberation, but RTM cannot amend the budget. It's an up or down vote. In 2025, after hours of debate, the only guidance produced was reduce the budget. That's not deliberation, it's just pure noise. We're told that RTM represents the community, but in May 2025, absences and abstentions meant nearly 25% of the population did not get a voice. Brattleboro voters were not represented at all. Those members have valid reasons for being absent or choosing not to vote publicly, and those reasons were respected. The question is obvious. Why is that same flexibility and privacy denied to everyone else, all of the voters in town? The Australian ballot solves this cleanly, fairly, and completely. It's private, it's accessible, it's familiar, it allows people to vote without intimidation, without sacrificing an entire day, and without performing democracy in public. Seniors, people with disabilities, working parents, hourly workers, and non-English as first language speakers all gain an equal voice. When residents understood this was simply a normal vote, one they could actually participate in, they signed our petition eagerly. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. I'd like to respond to some of the criticisms of town meeting form of government that I've heard. It is said that town meeting is controlled by the privileged, the powerful, the entitled, and the elite. Town meeting is constituted of you and me and other people in the town. Anybody in the town can put in to run for town meeting. There are open slots. People can attend. Open town meeting, similarly, is populated by people who live in the town. I'm not aware of anything elitist or power-driven or privilege-driven or entitled about people who choose to take the time to delve deeply into the town's business, because that's what people do when they participate in town meeting. They take the time to delve deeply. That's not elitist. That's not privilege. That's not the powerful having more of a voice. There's also these concerns about town meeting being financially irresponsible and not representative. Town meeting members are elected by Australian ballot in exactly the same form that is proposed for voting on the budget. But what you're going to have in the absence of town meeting is an Australian ballot article. Shall the town expend $27,878,000 to pay for services that are being provided without any explanation? There may be an informational meeting, but you're not going to have 1,800 people or 1,500 people who have taken the time to go to the informational meeting. And that 1,500 or 1,800 people is the number who often vote at the March elections. I'd also note that it's Select Board that develops our budgets. And there's been concern expressed about the level of human services funding that's been approved by town meeting over the last years. The level of human services funding pales in comparison to the budget increases that Select Board has included year in and year out in our budgets for years. And last year, the town meeting rejected that a budget increase as being too significant.
Hi, Nell Mayo. I ran over here from working at the Hatch Space. It's my carpentry credit right there. because I was listening online and I got a little agitated, and so I'm here to make the point that I've made at the past couple select board meetings. What I view as a commonality amongst all sides here is that ultimately, if we want to help people participate and if we want to see broader participation in town, it does require individual sacrifice. And for those of us, or those of anyone in the town that have more time, and time ultimately is a privilege and it ultimately is linked to class, I agree with that, that can be given to involve your fellow voters. That could be involved to try to get them to turn out, whether that's to town meeting, open or representative, or to the ballot. But whether or not you're debating it at town meeting or you're voting on it at the ballot, the burden of informed participation, I believe, still should be held. And you can call me elitist for saying that. I made $23,000 this year, you know? I choose to spend my time this way, and I don't have a lot of the things that would limit my time the way other people do. I don't have children, absolutely, but I do work to individually support myself for this. So the vulnerable people that are proposed as being represented here, I think, one of them. So I do think we have an obligation as people voting in a democracy to try to best inform ourselves. And I believe that if you have the ability to help other people in your community, you have that obligation as well. If something comes easier to you, you should do that. I was talking to Franz on the radio today, and I said I spend a lot of time, when I go out to the bars, I'm bothering people my age to talk to them about things, about the budget, and I'm ruining the vibe. So I think that's a commonality across all of us here. One thing that I feel is a misunderstanding or a false equivalency is that to say people who come to representative or who would come to open town meeting, being better informed, it's not innate, you know, it's not an essentialism. It's not saying these people are more capable. It's saying these people either they made a choice to commit more time to this. And some of that could be motivated by privilege. I don't disagree. But I do not think you can equivocally say that it is. That's what really, you know, grinds my gears, so to say. There's all sorts of other things. Again, amendments can be made on the budget. You just can't make individual line items. I see I'm being tapped out here. But I would just say I really strongly disagree that people advocating for town meeting are saying that they're in any sort of different class than the rest of our town. And whether or not it's coming to meeting or coming to the ballot, there's still going to be unpaid labor that's going to have to come from someone in the town to try to educate the rest of us who don't have the ability to come to all the select board meetings and keep up.
Good. So that gives me a chance to give an online question here. This is from Gary Stroud, who live chatted this question. I want to ask or interrogate to Tom Franks the comment he made about having people who are intelligent to vote. What does he meant? What he meant? Did he mean by that? And does one need to be intelligent to vote on town issues?
I am not sure I said you need to be intelligent to vote. In fact, I can't believe I did. So I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer that question, because one of the things that I'm proposing is that you should be able to vote, period. I don't approve of, some qualifications, and, other than you're a registered voter, and I kind of hope you'd be of sound mind, but I don't think that excludes you if you're not, at least in our society. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Wojcik. I work here at the library, but I'm not on the clock, and I'm not speaking for the town or anything but myself. So I want to say I attended one representative town meeting. It was the COVID year when I was helping tech support for folks who were attending remotely. It was a long day. It was painful. I would say I don't think there's anybody in this room here that doesn't think there are problems with representative town meeting. I have really serious concerns about either of the alternatives that are proposed. Look at the ballot questions that are on this year's ballot, right? Look at how hard they were to understand. How many people knew that if the first one passed, we would have no representative town meeting this year? I didn't know that. I thought all this would have to go through the charter process with the state. That makes me even more concerned about this ballot question. How often have you seen a ballot question which was worded poorly, that was hard to understand, that you were poorly informed about, and it's just there, and you got to vote on it or abstain and not have a voice in the matter. Also, yes, you said a lot of facts about ballot questions as an alternative. I think there were a lot of implications in there, actually, about the inference I thought I was being asked to draw was that representative town meeting led to Brattleboro's poor economic condition compared to other towns. And I think that is a very, very tenuous. I think the causality there is very, very difficult to establish. But yeah, the ballot questions being difficult to understand, poorly written, there's no opportunity to have an in-person conversation about them. I think the select board and the town staff who were at representative town meeting heard all of that debate. Maybe the only vote that was out of it was no on the budget, but I think they heard it. Now, whether they did anything with that, what they heard, I can't say, but at least they heard it. I think that there would be opportunities probably to expand people's ability to participate while keeping representative town meeting as well. I do think there are some problems with open town meeting. I do worry about people packing it for a particular issue, people not showing up many years, and then a very small number of people, potentially smaller than representative town meeting, deciding important issues. So yeah, I just want to conclude by saying, I agree, representative town meeting has issues. I am more worried about what might happen with either of the other alternatives than I am about representative town meeting at the moment.
There's one thing I would amplify, and I think it builds on what you were saying, Matt. There is a tradition in this town of the select board listening to the debate at RTM, and even though RTM does not have the ability to say, we want you to take $50,000 out of the sidewalk fund and move it over into the swimming pool fund, we cannot do that. But at the end of the day, when there's a long decision, the select board, more often than not, tries to match the decision, the discussion, the deliberation that took place at town meeting. They're not required to, but they make that effort. Quick couple of examples. Last year, one of the cuts was the sustainability coordinator. Nobody wanted to see that position go. It was clear at town meeting that we did not. The select board found the money, found a way to fund that position because that position brings in more money than we pay the sustainability coordinator. And they found the money and they did not make that cut. We had a huge discussion in 2025 about the merits of the acceptable behavior ordinance, and that was a very difficult decision. The select board had put in a year working on that. And that was voted down. It was rescinded. That's one of our checks on the select board. But then RTM fully funded the police department and enthusiastically endorsed the work of the Brat team. So one thing that comes out of RTM is listening, compromise, prioritization, balance. I don't think I need to say it anymore.
Now it's on. There we go. It was on. Frick Bright, District 9 Rep. I've been an RTM member for many, many years. 1 year I missed was when we voted in the sustainability director or coordinator, which we were funding a position like that for about $10,000. We went it up to $100,000, and it's paid off handsomely for the town and will for years to come. That was one situation where RTM increased the budget in a way that was wise and counter to what the select board had proposed. There are many times in many details that we have reduced the budget over the years. I think on average we've reduced the budget every year a little bit. and in detail. Some people have pointed out that technically the select board, we're just voting up and down on a total number, but the fact is that practically we are surgically adjusting the budget. What the quote-unquote one person, one vote, which is a very catchy phrase, gives us is basically like giving your mechanic a sledgehammer and no other tools. I think it will reduce participation and increase the budget over the long haul. I think there have been a lot of false statements, false equivalencies, use of statistics in ways that are questionably relevant. I have lived in many places which had different forms of government, mayor and something equivalent to a select board, open town meeting, and I have seen nothing like RTM in terms of the quality of the process, the community building aspect of the process, and the broader number of people who are intimate with the functioning of the town. And I think overall that gains us more than we can really appreciate. Thank you.
Hi, Trish Twining. Just a question under Australian ballot. If an article is voted down, then what is the process to revise that article? Hello? Yeah, okay. So
when I was on select board, we had the dubious distinction of having the budget approved at town meeting and then rejected at Australian ballot. This was the first time we put the police fire money in the budget. And we were back to square one. We had an Australian ballot that had not particularly explained what the reason was for the rejection of the budget. And we were tasked with trying to come up with another budget to present to another town meeting that hopefully would get approval and wouldn't get rejected in another Australian ballot. But if budget is rejected at Australian ballot, current process is that it goes back to select board to propose a new budget.
Kate wanted to make some clarifications about voting.
I specifically wanted to wait till the end because this is going to sound really confusing, but I want at least everybody to understand this when they go into the ballot box or the polls that day, and when they read the headlines in the paper that you might get all confused about. As I said, there are three questions. There's the RTM question, which is a standalone question. Well, they're all standalone questions, but that's not a charter change. The Australian ballot question and the open town meeting question are charter changes. They're not an either or. You're going to vote yes or no on Australian ballot, and you're going to vote yes or no on open town meeting, which means Australian ballot can pass, which means open town meeting can pass. They're standalone charter changes, which means there's a possibility, this is why I want to explain this now, there's a possibility that we could be sending to the legislature two charter changes that are diametrically opposed to each other. So I'm saying this because I want people to be aware when you go to the polls or you get your ballot, that you think about, do you want to take, whatever your position is on one or the other, do you want to vote yes on one and no on, you've got to vote on both of them, whether it's a yes on one and no on the other, or a yes on both, or whatever you want to do. But I'm hoping I'm like explaining this, because if both of them pass, because they're not an either or, you're not voting for either Australian ballot or open town meeting. You're voting for Australian ballot and you're voting for open town meeting. So I want everybody to think about that, and everybody can reach out and ask me a week from now when you think about this in the middle of the night going, what is she talking about? Because this has taken me a year, to process this. So there is a possibility that we could vote to eliminate open town meeting or eliminate representative town meeting, and we could vote for both Australian ballot and for open town meeting, or we could vote for neither of them. So I just want everybody on Tuesday or Wednesday morning not to be confused if they hear the news. So just think about what I'm saying and think about how you want to go and vote that day.
Hi, Alyssa, District 9, RTM. So what I'm understanding from what you just said, Kate, that it's possible to have that hybrid model, or no?
No. What?
Okay. I'm
is,
sorry
yeah, no,
if I didn't
no,
understand
no,
it correctly, but I'm like, oh, is that an opportunity for the hybrid?
Not what we're voting on March 3rd. Because what we're voting on March 3rd is, do we want open town meeting? Do we want Australian ballot? There's not because the legislature is just going to take what we send them, and they may get 2 charter changes that say 2 opposite things. Now, what happens when it gets up there, they may look at us and say, you guys just sent us 2 things that are diametrically opposed. We're sending it back. Or they may figure out their own solution. I mean, they may come back with us with, hey, this is what we heard. We're gonna set it up for you. We obviously, still the Charter Commission is still in existence, and we still have our process open. So there is an opportunity through the charter revision process to do something. But I want to speak about literally just what you're voting on March 3rd, which is we could end up on March 3rd with the majority of people who vote on the open town meeting question saying they want it, the majority of people who vote on the Australian ballot question saying they want it. And that means both charter change petitions have passed and go to Montpelier. I know it's really confusing.
David, just point of clarity, I think is very important here while you're describing everything. If RTM is voted no, we don't want to get rid of it, that has implications along with these 2 things, as well as I would like, and unfortunately you don't have here, the explanation of why the articles are reported, like a couple people have mentioned, and that was because it was developed as the RTM part was Article 1 of our petition, and the second part that left was Article 2. When the select board split that and took it off as a charter change, so that's why the wording and things seem confusing, is because of the legal piece, not the way it was intended.
Yeah, and I want to just clarify what Randy's saying. If the town votes to keep representative town meeting, we keep it, and it doesn't matter what the votes are on the open town meeting question and the Australian ballot question. Even if the town overwhelmingly goes, yeah, we want open town meeting, yeah, we want Australian ballot. If we keep representative town meeting, those votes do not count. We will keep representative town meeting, if that's clear.
Oh, good. Let me just do that. Gemma Seymour, representative for District 8. It's my opinion that RTM works far better than the alternatives, but of course no position on this issue is really anything that anyone can substantiate with direct evidence, since the 3 systems can't coexist at the same time in the same place. I predict that if RTM is rescinded, it will be a detriment to the town. If my prediction turns out to not be accurate, then I predict that the reason for that will be because of my hard work and the hard work of people like me who will be doing everything we possibly can to ensure better government, regardless of its form. That being said, when it comes to legal interpretation, I'm what is known as a textualist, or an original meaning originalist. And what that means is that what I believe the law is what the text of the law means at the time of its passage to the people it binds, not whatever the legislatures who passed the law intended its effect to be or what we might like it to mean. I therefore dispute the idea that should RTM be voted down, that this would take immediate effect, because that is not what either the Brattleboro Charter or the Vermont statutes say. 17 VSA 2640A sub D, which purports to allow the rescinding of RTM immediately by townwide ballot, is a charter change. What we're talking about here is a charter change. The RTM is written into the Brattleboro Charter in so many ways that it's inseparable from the charter. So the statement that this is not a charter change is wholly legally inaccurate as far as I'm concerned. The establishment of RTM is not provisional in the charter on any other law. 24 Appendix VSA, Chapter 107, Section 8 reads, this charter may be amended, which, by the way, this is the Brattleboro Charter, may be amended in the manner provided by 17 VSA 2645 or by the select board or school directors pursuant to vote by the voters of the town by Australian ballot and subject to the approval of the legislature. The other half of that is that 17 VSA 2631 sub A requires that unless otherwise provided by law, when the charter of a municipality provides for procedures other than those established by law, the provisions of that charter shall prevail. The Brattleboro Charter says very clearly that if the charter is to be amended, it must be approved by the legislature, regardless of what 2640A sub D says. Again, I dispute that this does not constitute a charter change, and because it does constitute a charter change, it must be approved by the legislature. Thank you.
Okay, we covered an awful lot of ground tonight. So now it comes to the important part, which is your part, and those of you listening and watching this, voting. Early election ballots will be available starting Wednesday, February 11th at the town clerk's office. And in case you've forgotten, because we've mentioned it enough, election day is Tuesday, March 3rd, first Tuesday in March. It's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the American Legion Post 5 over on 32 Linden Street. The election results will be posted on brattleboro.gov/elections. Now, if you're not registered to vote, or if you want to check your status as a voter, you can visit the Vermont voter portal at vote.vermont.gov/public/dashboard. Or if you'd like to do it in person, just stop by the town clerk's office. They're open from 8:30 to noon and from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and you can register the vote there. As I understand it, the early voting your ballots can be cast until the end of the day on Monday. Yes. So, all we can say is thank you for participating tonight. Do appreciate it, both here and online. And there'll be lots more in the Commons over the next couple of weeks of letters and columns. And Jeff Potter, who manages the Voices section, has been doing his best to get all your comments in and keep them coming. And thank you. Thank you for attending, and thank you for participating.